Happening now on a special edition of Grid Tonight. Last Wednesday night, after we went off the air, during an emergency late night meeting of the United Nations, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, appeared in a video saying he ordered a special military operation in the Donbas region of Ukraine, with some parts of that region controlled by pro Russia separatists. Only minutes after Putin's speech ended, multiple explosions heard inside Ukraine. What world leaders and Western intelligence officials had warned about for many weeks had finally came true. Russia started a full-scale invasion into Ukraine. Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, and with me, Adam Lemerise, and welcome back, Joe Samaniego, to Grid Tonight. I also want to give a special shout out, as always, to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin. Really appreciate everything you guys do for us. Thank you for investing in the Grid Network, and link it to our Patreon is in the video description below. Please feel free to leave a comment in the chat room, ask any questions, and engage in tonight's very serious discussion. And tonight, instead of doing multiple racing stories like we typically do, we're going to dedicate the entire show to Russia invading Ukraine and how it directly impacts the motorsports community. And starting from the top, I already stated it all started last Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, across the pond before sunrise in Moscow, Russia, and Kiev, Ukraine. Putin essentially declared war on Ukraine in his speech, and not even half an hour later, Ukraine was under attack by the Russian military. This was more than just a dispute over the Donbas region where shelling had picked up big time in recent days leading up to the full scale invasion. Western intelligence officials had warned about a false flag operation to create a pretext for military action, and it became clear that Russian forces wanted to go into Ukraine after the capital city of Kiev and overthrowing the Ukrainian government, targeting Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky and his family. And next, looking at a timeline of everything that's happened, February 21st, 2022, that's when Russia recognized those breakaway Donbas regions in 2000, and then February 24th, Russian forces launched the invasion into Ukraine on three sides. And some little facts here: Ukraine is currently not a member of NATO or the European Union, although the European Union most recently announced that they're going to be considering their membership. But based on my understanding, it could be a long time before they make a decision on whether or not Ukraine can join the European Union. And NATO is a military alliance between 30 countries, including the United States, and no military action has been taken by the United States as of the airing of this video. And when it became known to the world that a new war had broken out in Eastern Europe, people people around the globe stopped what they were doing and turned on the television. This is an event in history that we'll keep in our minds forever. Like many people here in the States remember the beginning of Operation Desert Storm in the Gulf War, the Iraq War, and the war in Afghanistan, Western Europe. The reaction to Russia's actions was widespread. Almost all condemned the invasion. For people in Europe, especially those living in Ukraine, they woke up to a completely different world. And before we get into the race and impact, what was your initial thoughts when you heard the news, starting with you, Joe, that Russia has invaded Ukraine?
A sense of disbelief in the sense of the large scale of this attack. One, the big thing with this attack occurred was it brought back memories of what happened in 2014 with Crimea. I still remember when I was in college, I in fact was enrolled in Russian politics class at the University of South Carolina, and that's when we saw Russia invade Georgia. So we know in the past Putin has used military forces, has invaded countries. So in that aspect, I wasn't too shocked out of the blue, especially since we saw tensions mounting. What did shock me was the wide scale of this. Once we saw and heard the explosions at the Capitol that night, shortly after the speech, that's when it hit me that this was a much bigger situation because I didn't see the speech by Putin, but we knew tensions were rising, and then just seeing those initial tweets where we saw the explosions being heard at the Capitol really that really shocked me. I couldn't believe that we're seeing a full scale invasion like this in our time. This is the stuff that largest invasion since World War II, and it just started something really tragic. And I think everyone just knew this was not going to be an event where we could just continue on with motorsports and have to separate from us, because this is something the motorsports industry is already dealing with, and we're going to be dealing with this quite possibly all year and maybe for future years.
And before I answer your question, I will acknowledge that I have two friends who are from the Ukraine and a family in the Ukraine. It's really hard to see them go through this, and they are in my thoughts as well as everyone going through this. And Amber, I want to say you have a brother in the army, and your husband's in the Navy. I want to thank them for the services. Really do appreciate it. When I heard about this, sad, mad. It's hard. You know, it, it's sad to see what the Ukrainian people are going through right now. Um, I just couldn't believe it. I knew. So I just want to say, hopefully we can get through this, safely, um, and just have everyone have their thoughts and prayers with everyone in Ukraine right now, what they're going through.
Yeah, for sure. The people in Ukraine are really going through a tough time right now, continuing to think about those people. And it's just really shocking to see that this is happening, that this is real life. I've been watching the news for like the past months, last several weeks and so, and they kept saying that something's going to happen. And then I remember they said it was going to happen on one Wednesday, but then that didn't happen. And people are like, if you keep saying this is going to happen, when is it finally going to happen? And unfortunately, it did happen, and now we have a war going on in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine. I was just shocked, and as I just said, talking about everyone stopping and what they were doing to look at the television. My entire family, we were looking at the TV just in shock and disbelief that something like this was actually happening. That that you could just go in and invade someone's country, a country not belonging to you, and just claim it as your own. This is something that just really ridiculous and uncalled for in today's society. And now looking at the impact of the invasion felt through the motorsports industry from Formula One preseason testing at Barcelona. And here's what Sebastian Vettel had to say. Vettel says, I think it's horrible to see what is happening. And obviously, if you look at the calendar, we have a race schedule in Russia. For myself, my opinion, I should not go. I will not go. I'm just really shocked and sad to see what's going on. We will see going forward, but I think my decision is already made. So there you have it. Sebastian Vettel, multi-time Formula One world champion, said if the Russian Grand Prix had not been canceled, he would have refused to race there, even if he was missing out on valuable points, because some things in life are more important than racing. And 2021 Formula One world champion Max Verstappen said he thought it was wrong to race in a country at war. Lewis Hamilton said his heart goes out to all of the courageous people of Ukraine for being attacked simply because they chose a better future. And he added he stands with the Russian people as well, who oppose the war and seek peace, often at risk of their own freedom. And in Russia, people protesting against something that go directly against the Kremlin's beliefs can be arrested and have a criminal record that will make it much harder for them to have a good future of their own. Now, Haas F1 pulled team principal Gunther Steiner from participating in a press conference at Barcelona with Russia on the attack and making itself look bad in front of the entire world. Haas immediately went into damage control mode, and they started off by announcing that they would remove the red and blue, run a plain white Haas car, and have no Russian flag resemblance. The primary sponsor, Uralkali, was removed from the cars, team haulers, and all Haas property. Then it was announced that Haas partnership with Uralkali was going to up in the air as sanctions imposed by the United States and European Union complicated their partnership and ability to accept payments, and this put Nikita Mazepin's future in the air, as Haas may have to look for funding before the 2022 season, which starts in just a few weeks' time. Although Steiner thinks they'll be all right financially this year, and if Mazepin is out, expect Haas test and reserve driver Pietro Fittipaldi to be one of the front runners further seat. Joe, in greater detail, how did the sanctions impact Haas's partnership with Uralkali, and how is the relationship between Uralkali and the Kremlin?
So, starting with the relation with Uralkali and the Kremlin, we know the leadership at Uralkali, which includes Dmitry Mazepin, Nikita's father, have close ties with Vladimir Putin. One of the big things is Uralkali supports a lot of Russian athletes across the world, not only Nikita Mazepin, not only in motorsports. So they're one of the companies where a lot of folks will see as they're always promoting Russia as a national power when it comes to sports. They want to see Russia succeed. They want people to recognize their fine athletes in Russia competing around the world. What these sanctions have done is made it where Uralkali cannot do business internationally. So this makes it hard where if you can't pay international partners, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what's happening with Haas right now. Those payments are not coming to Haas. Reports have been that Haas relied up to 20% of their funds from Uralkali. Without those funds, Haas, they're going to be short. They got to find those money. They got to find out another way for revenue. And this is something where I think the relationship between Haas and Uralkali has really not been good ever since the start from day one with everything that's gone on with Nikita Mazepin, the car that we saw last year, and now with this. I highly anticipate that we're going to see Haas just make a clean break, end the deal with Uralkali, Nikita Mazepin, and just try to salvage something because they got to now look for additional funding, and we're just weeks away from the Australian Grand Prix. And it's just a mess where after Rich Energy and now this, there's a lot of questions I think for Haas to answer about their business practice because second time a sponsor with all this, and it's just been a fiasco for them and Mick Schumacher.
Yes, Joe, you brought up a really good point about Haas. This isn't the first position that they found themselves in, where they could be in trouble. Yeah, Rich Energy was a massive disaster for them, and the Uralkali deal, it looks like it's definitely going south, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to recover from this long term. I know that Gunther Steiner said that they're going to be good for the remainder of the season for the most part, but who knows what it's going to look like a couple of years down the road. And I know they'll have some time to find sponsorship and all of that, but overall it's just certainly quite a position that Haas didn't expect to find themselves in a couple of months ago. And we do have some comments in the chat room for some viewers. You see Ian right here says, other than the Russian Grand Prix and Mazepin, the Ukraine has zero impact on motorsports. And Ian, I'll ask you to stick around because as we go through the show, you're actually going to see that this situation has a large impact on the motorsports world, no matter where you are in the globe. So definitely encourage you to stick around for the remainder of the show. And Amber says you think it's very sad that this is happening and cannot believe that and you also say that there's a lot of Russian drivers and teams that are wrapped up in this in the in this mess. And yeah, you're absolutely right. From the World Endurance Championship, you got the G Drive team. Roman Rusanov is also a Russian driver, has the Russian backing. They're going to be in some trouble. Also, you have the Russian driver Danny Kvyat, the ex Formula One driver, Nikita Mazepin, as you mentioned, Robert Schwartzman, who was racing in FIA Formula 2 last year. Again, and that's quite a bit of Russian drivers. And also Irina Sidorkova, a female racer in the W Series as well. So you're absolutely right, Amber. There's definitely a lot of Russian drivers who are going to be affected by this as well. And also can't forget the S&P Racing team as well. They- they're funded by Russian backing as well. And moving on, Hendrick Motorsports announced this evening they'll donate $200,000 to Samaritan's Purse to support disaster assistance, and HMS will also donate an additional $2,000 towards Ukraine relief for every lap led by a Hendrick Chevy this weekend in Las Vegas. This morning, Richard Childress went on Fox News and announced he's going to be sending 1 million rounds of ammunition to Ukraine's military to help fight off the Russian military. And Childress is a board member for the bullet making company Ammo Incorporated. Last week, the United States offered Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky a plan to help him escape Ukraine in case Russia storms the capital in Kyiv and tries to assassinate him. However, Zelensky declined the offer from the U.S. and famously said, I need ammunition, not a ride. And going to you next, Adam. What do you think of this gesture from Richard Childress?
I love it, and also I like the gesture. I also like the gesture what Hendrick Motorsports is doing as well. I think it's a. I give them a round. I'll give them a round of applause. I give them a 10 out of 10, and this is really awesome. I'm glad we have people here in the United States, caring for the Ukrainian people, and it's just a really good thing. I applaud Hendrick Motorsports. I applaud Richard Childress. Um, and Ian says Ferrari will keep Haas going. We'll see. Um, Ian else says Schwartzman is an Israeli/Russian dual passport. Thank you, Ian, for the comment. I give Hendrick Motorsports and Richard Childress 10 out of 10. It's awesome what they're doing, and I want to say congratulations from the bottom of my heart. Really, really cool. Really, really special.
Yeah, it's really cool to see Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress getting involved here. And when the president of Ukraine asked for more ammunition, that he doesn't need a ride out of Kyiv. I know a lot of people praising the bravery of Volodymyr Zelensky, and Richard Childress actually said that he was really inspired by Zelensky and compared him to a modern day Winston Churchill. So Richard Childress felt like, as someone who supports freedom and everything, he wants to help the Ukrainians protect their freedom by giving them the ammunition that they asked for. So definitely an A+ move there by Richard Childress and Rick Hendrick as well, pledging to donate money for every lap that a Hendrick car leads at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend. And last Friday, we saw the plain white Haas F1 car at Barcelona, and the FIA released the statement saying the FIA Formula One World Championship visits countries all over the world with the positive vision to unite people, bringing nations together. We are watching the developments in Ukraine with sadness and shock and hope for a swift and peaceful resolution to the present situation. On Thursday evening, Formula One, the FIA, and the teams discussed the position of our sport, and the conclusion is, including the view of all relevant stakeholders, that it is impossible to hold the Russian Grand Prix under the current circumstances. Yeah, so you saw it right there, folks. Formula One decided to cancel the Russian Grand Prix, citing they could not race in Russia, considering all that. And although the event organizer said there's still a chance that Formula One will return to Sochi in September, highly unlikely. Definitely not going to happen. Also, no word on the future of Igor Drive, which is supposed to be the future site of the Russian Grand Prix. Nikita Mazepin made a statement saying everything was out of his control. And the one driver who's really been silent during all of this is Mick Schumacher, the other Haas driver, really quiet. And it's hard to imagine this not being a distraction for the second year Formula One driver. So, Adam, is this a distraction that will hurt Schumacher's development as a Formula One driver? You don't see it being an issue.
I'm surprised Mick Schumacher's been silent this whole time. I mean, he has a teammate, like we've mentioned, Nikita Mazepin, who's going through this. I'm really shocked. Hopefully, Mick Schumacher, will be with his teammate, stand with his teammate. Since they are, teammates in Formula One. I am shocked that Mick Schumacher hasn't said anything, and I think it will hurt, but hopefully Mick Schumacher will say something soon, and I hope Mick Schumacher has hopefully Mick Schumacher has Nikita Mazepin's back go through this. We have a comment from Amber. It says, "Poor Mick." Yeah, I'll agree with you, Amber, 110%. And I thank you for the comment.
When it comes to Mick Schumacher, I feel this has to be really frustrating more than anything. I believe Mick is capable of, once he gets in the zone of focusing on the car, racing, this isn't too much of a distraction. However, it has to be really frustrating from your first year, overshadowed with your teammates. That video of him that essentially showed him sexually assaulting a woman, to then the Hero Kelly sponsorship, the Russian designed car, when Russia was then recently have been told they're not allowed to display the Russian flag or symbols in any sport, from International Olympic Committee, the FIA, and then this workaround with the Hero Kelly paint scheme. And now this year, with everything going on, just so much where I feel this is just really unfortunate for Schumacher to just endure. The reason why I think he might be quiet is because until Haas makes an official announcement that they severed their ties with Euro Kelly, they're still technically haven't announced that full announcement. So Schumacher doesn't want to say anything too early that could get himself in trouble. Just in the event maybe Euro Kelly is still around somehow. I highly doubt that. But I think Schumacher, we've seen him been vocal about racial justice when it comes to social justice as well. I think once that announcement is made that Euro Kelly's gone, I would not be surprised if Schumacher says something in support of Ukraine, denouncing what Russia is doing. It's just something where I think once he's in the vehicle, he could really just focus on driving and racing. But it has to be frustrating knowing that I feel part of it has to be Haas, but their handling of Rich Energy before them, this sponsorship, it just sort of makes me just really think that, when it comes to Michael Schumacher, his debut car, the Jordan with the 7 Up, that's a car a lot of people see as the launching pad. And for Mick Schumacher, if he has a good long career, his launching pad car, his starting was the Haas. That sponsorship, that paint scheme, when people are looking at it in that many years down the road, they're going to start remembering some of the unfortunate events of 2022. And I just think it's really unfortunate for Mick Schumacher, where at the end of the day, when it comes to what was his rookie car, it was that. And I feel it has been a distraction in that sense, but I feel once he's in the vehicle, especially this year, hopefully we can see him perform and contend for some points.
Yeah, it definitely has to be quite a frustrated distraction for Mick Schumacher because I'm pretty sure he just wants to focus on driving a car and developing as a driver and try to reach his potential in Formula One. But with all of this drama and outside stuff going on, very very frustrated. I'm sure he wishes this drama did not go on. I'm sure everybody feels the exact same way. And also have another comment from me in the chat room saying, "Come on, Schumacher hasn't the talent to go much further than Haas." And well, Ian, if you look at Mick Schumacher's junior career, yes, his first year in the series, in most of the series, didn't particularly go so well, but as he got more experience in those type of cars in those series, seemed like Mick really come into his own. Will Mick Schumacher come into his own in Formula One like like he did in those other series? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe that'll be this year or the year after that. And I think it's too soon to judge to see how well Mick Schumacher will do as a Formula One driver. And on Saturday and Sunday, we saw pre-race ceremonies asking for peace in Ukraine at Rally Sweden. Race winner Kali Paris said he couldn't celebrate his victory because of what's happening in the world. Paris from Finland, which shares the eastern border with Russia. And yesterday, Ford Motor Company CEO Jim Farley released a statement right right here talking about everything that's going on in Ukraine, Russia, and while they don't have significant operations in Ukraine, Ford says they do have a strong contingent of Ukrainian nationals working at Ford around the world, and they're going to continue to support them during this time, and that the Ford Fund is also going to be making a $100,000 donation to the Global Giving Ukraine Relief Fund for humanitarian aid to assist Ukrainian citizens and families who have been displaced during this crisis. And also, they're going to be suspending all of their operations in Russia effective immediately. And some other manufacturers have responded as well. General Motors suspended some business in Russia. Hyundai stopped production temporarily at its plant in St. Petersburg, Russia. Jaguar Land Rover halted deliveries of all vehicles that were scheduled to head to Russia. Mercedes Benz will be donating a large sum of money to those affected by the crisis in Ukraine. The Volkswagen Group promised to give money to help the refugees who had to flee Ukraine, and right now it's a massive, massive refugee crisis, humanitarian crisis. And today, United Nations said that over 1 million Ukrainians have become refugees, and in a worst case scenario, they believe that number could go all the way up to a whopping 5 million. Such a sad, sad situation that could have been. prevented, and Volvo decided to suspend all car shipments to Russia until further notice. Joe, overall, how has the response been from the car industry itself?
The response from the automotive industry, I think, is just something where, considering what we're witnessing going on with Russia invading, I think it's very appropriate. And we're not only seeing the automotive industries, we're seeing a lot of businesses saying they're not going to do business in Russia, they're not going to do business with Russian companies, everything from aviation to automotive, all sorts. And one of the things I think a lot of people need to recognizes a lot of these automotive companies, we think of them as like Ford being American, Mercedes being German. They're all multinational corporations. Toyota, they have their headquarters in Japan, but they got plants in the United States. There's plants in Mexico for Dodge, Mopar. Canada has GM. And of course, internationally as well, as they produce vehicles like Buick, they got vehicles in China as well. So these are big corporations, and this just hurts business. I mean, a war, one of the big things is just it's so disruptive to our big global economy, destroys wealth overall, especially in the Ukraine right now, and it just costs a lot of lives. So I feel it's a very appropriate response that we're seeing, not just from the automotive industry, but globally from all these companies just taking action, saying, "Hey, we're not going to do business with Russian companies or in Russia."
FAA President Mohammed bin Sulayem pledged full support for the Automobile Federation of Ukraine, which proposed a ban on Russian and Belarusian drivers competing outside of their home country. This caused the FAA World Motorsport Council to schedule an emergency meeting. The International Olympic Committee, FIFA, which governs soccer, many sporting events have taken similar action, pulling their events out of Russia and issuing bans. Yesterday, we got the decision. The FAA World Motorsport Council decided to allow drivers from Russia and Belarus to participate in motorsports, but under a neutral flag. Sulayem said the WMFC's decision was aligned with the recommendations recently made by the International Olympic Committee, and the World Motorsport Council also decided not to allow any racing events be held in Belarus and Russia. So, guys, this is what I'm wondering. Do you think this was a fair compromise to allow drivers from Belarus and Russia to participate, or do you think they should have followed other sports with a ban altogether?
Well, we have seen, like Ian mentioned, Charles Schwartzman is Israeli slash Russian, and we've had drivers in, in others in other forms of motorsports compete under a different flag from what they're used to. I think Ed Jones, I think driver Ed Jones has done it, and I think there's one other driver that did it. So I think it was a fair compromise, and I agree with what Mohammed bin Sulayem did. A lot of respect for him. So I think it, I think it was, I think it was a fair compromise to do that.
With this compromise, it didn't get to the straightforward effect of banning Russian drivers from competing in motorsports, but it definitely made the road for them a lot harder. As you mentioned, Schwarzman, born in Israel, he got his racing license with Russia. If he could get Israeli or just run under the neutral, that's great. The big thing is the funding for him, sponsorship. No Russian funds, of course. Ira Kelly, other Russian corporations with the sanctions, that's going to make it really hard. And I think one of the big things with this compromise plan is it makes it where it does make the road harder for them, but it still leaves a lot of questions because we know there's a lot of drivers, teams that were going to compete in whether it was sports cars, other series, and then as you mentioned earlier in the W series, Irina Sidikorova, she's in a series where she doesn't have to rely on sponsorship money. But that series is based in the United Kingdom. They have a race in Great Britain as well too. A lot of questions wondering is she going to be able to race in the W Series next year? She's shown a lot of talent last year, a podium, only 18 years old, soon to be 19 years old. This is just really unfortunate because I know, as Daniel Kvyat said, He doesn't want war. He wants peace for his daughter, for everybody. And just because of this war, essentially it just gotten to the point where, at the end, the pressure has to be on the Kremlin, the government, to stop this war. This is one of the ways to do it. It seems unfair, but at the end, the big, more unfair and unjust thing going on right now is that invasion of Ukraine. And it's just really tragic because we know if you're sitting on the sideline for a year not racing, that's a valuable year of experience lost. And it's just really unfortunate for these drivers to be in this situation.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. It's definitely truly unfortunate that those drivers are in this situation. And before I answer this question and move on to the next thing, have some comments in the chat room. Amber asking, will this make inflation in the United States go up? Well, Amber, we already know inflation in the United States in a lot of places it's not going well right now. It's been a problem for a while, and this is expected to make inflation go up. But what the U.S. government did was release the oil reserves to hopefully combat the problem. So maybe it'll solve that issue. So inflation is not as bad as it's always been. And Amber also asking if there's any drivers from Belarus, and I'm glad you asked that question, Amber, because I had that question as well earlier in the week, and Vincent Bruins shared with me that we do have two drivers from Belarus, a father and son duo named Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. and Alexander Talkanitsa Sr. Yeah, they're the most well-known drivers in Belarus. So thank you, really appreciate you guys for sharing your questions in the chat room and everything. And to answer the question that we've just been talking about, I do think it was a fair compromise given everything that's going on. I know a lot of people see this as being totally unfair to punish these drivers just because they're Russian, just because they're Belarusian, because they had nothing to do with the war itself. But my own personal opinion, I think the reason why you're seeing Russia as a whole being punished like this is because the world views the Russian President Vladimir Putin as a danger to the world, and by punishing everyone in Russia, I think they're hoping that it will inspire some type of change in the future so the world overall can be a safer place. So that's why I believe that the reason why they're doing this, punishing all of these people who had nothing to do with the war in these countries, is to put the pressure on the Russian president himself, Vladimir Putin. And despite the compromise that we saw with the World Motorsport Council (FIA), the UK Motorsport was not satisfied with the outcome, so they came up with their own set of rules going a step further than the WMSC. In the United Kingdom, they've banned all Russian and Belarusian licensed teams. No Russian or Belarusian drivers and officials are allowed to participate in any racing events. This means Nikita Mazepin would not be allowed to race in the British Grand Prix, even if he stays with Haas F1 and races under the neutral flag. Additionally, there's a ban on any national symbols, flags, and colors related to Russia and Belarus. And motorsports journalist Andrew Benson from BBC Sports says Haas F1 is expected to release Nikita Mazepin from his contract and move on. Is Nikita Mazepin's departure from Haas really inevitable?
When it comes to Nikita Mazepin, I mean, we saw that Adam Stearns has retweeted that it looks like that's going to happen, that ties are going to be served between him and Yuri Kelly. And essentially, I feel like if that happens, we're not going to see Nikita Mazepin in Formula One, not just this year, but I don't think he will have another shot at Formula One. With everything that went down last year, with that tape, that surface, the handling of it, the hashtag that was trending for the longest time, we say no to Mazepin. And then with this, I don't see a team wanting to take the risk with Mazepin, especially if there's other drivers that could only show not only that they got the talent to get into F1, but also bring the sponsorship money. Euro Kelly, yeah, that's a good amount of money if they could bring it. And this situation, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So I feel with the case Japan, we might see him doing some racing 2, 3 years later down the road in other classes. I don't think he'll be in F1 again. And I think that's not just only from Nikita Mazepin, other series where you had drivers coming up, their future are in doubt as well.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Joe. I think the departure with Nikita Mazepin from Haas. I think it will happen. Just a matter of time now. I feel sorry for him. And I think I think he will race again. Down the road. I've got a lot of, got a lot of respect for him. Very talented driver coming out of Russia. You know, so I wish nothing but the best for Nikita Mazepin, and I think we'll see him compete, in motorsport series down the road in the future.
Yeah, probably see Nikita Mazepin in probably the distant future. I don't know about short term though, because based on how things are going, it's really looking like Nikita Mazepin is going to find a hard time racing outside of Russia. I'm not exactly sure what type of racing series they have inside of Russia, but if he's not able to race in Formula One or travel to all these places around the world, I'm not really sure what's next for him during the short term. But long term, when all of this passes us by, could definitely see him getting back into racing, and it's probably going to be the unfortunate end for him to the unfortunate end to his Formula One career, because after this, I don't see him coming back to Formula One. Maybe once this all passes, he'll be in sports cars. Maybe head over to the United States and race in the NTT IndyCar series. But I feel like that the writing's been on the wall for the last couple of weeks now that Nikita Mazepin probably not going to be a Haas Formula One driver when we kick off the season in just a few weeks' time in Bahrain. And this entire situation happening in Ukraine is obviously so tragic. Thinking about all the people, all the innocent people who have lost their lives, all of those people who did not ask for this, and the pure evil that we have seen on our television screens and the videos circulating on social media from Ukraine. And on behalf of everyone at Grid Network, we're continuing to keep the Ukrainian people in our thoughts during this horrendous time for that country. And never in a million years did I expect something like this would spill over into our world of motorsports. I can't believe we even had to discuss the possibility of Russian and Belarusian drivers being prohibited from racing solely because of decisions made by their leaders, Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko. It doesn't appear the conflict is going to be ended anytime soon, as Ukrainian officials are still hoping that diplomacy can end this war with Russia. And there's been some concern in the international community that Russia may not be satisfied with Ukraine and could try to invade other former Soviet Union nations, or a worst case scenario of entering NATO territory. Putin is very unpredictable, and there's no telling what he's going to do next. Of the 30 NATO countries, especially those in Europe, most of the world's racing series have a major presence in those countries. Should the international racing community be concerned and prepare some type of contingency plan just in case Russia and NATO have future conflict in the weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, Putin doesn't invade any more former Soviet Union uh, territories. And we have a comment from Humperdinck, and he says, I feel bad for Nikita in the situation. Humperdinck, I can say this. I agree with your statement 110% all the way. Um, you know, um, I think they should be concerned and and prepare for something. And 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 Amber says, I don't think NATO will get involved, and I hope not. For my brother is in the army, and Amber, like I said earlier, I want to thank your brother for serving in the army. Really do appreciate it. So hopefully we don't have to be too concerned, about the international racing uh, community going forward. But I think something, um, but I think something. Hope, hopefully we don't have to do anything. But if this goes forward and nothing is done, it's going to be interesting to see, what goes ahead in the future.
I think when it comes to the teams, they're probably already starting to do some contingency plans. Not so much on in the event this escalates and NATO gets involved, but just already the challenges that we're going to be facing, especially in national teams like in Formula One, when it's time to go from Europe over to Japan, Singapore for those races, you can't go over Russian airspace anymore. So that's going to be a little bit of a longer trip, more logistical challenges. We know when it comes to energy, a lot of it is supplied from Russia to Europe. That could be potential changes as well when it comes to costs, especially if these sanctions are continue on as drawn out. It's really unfortunate, I feel, because this is the year where we're starting to see case numbers are getting down lower and lower. We have it to where I don't see races being canceled anymore because of the pandemic. However, now with this just makes a new challenge. It's for the teams, the uncertainty that's all going on with this war. It's just really unfortunate and just something where I know when it comes to the motorsport season, it's going to be on everyone's mind. Sure, when we get the lights out and the racing is on, we're going to be able for that time to forget all the significance going on with this war in Ukraine. But then when we get back to the race is over, it's going to be on the news. We're probably going to hear more about it. It's unfortunate that teams, drivers are being impacted in this way. It's really unfortunate that, you know, we're even discussing this. We much rather be talking about motorsports news coming from the motorsports industry, but this is just something where it's just really unfortunate. And I know a lot of people don't exactly view Nikita Mazepin as like one of the most favorite drivers, we'll put it that way. But you got to feel bad for not only him, but Dan Kvyat, Arina Serdikova, any other driver out there that, an athlete that happens to come from Russia, they may totally oppose what's going on. And they're just unfortunately a victim of this as well, where soccer teams are not allowed to participate. The International Olympic Committee has made their statement. It is just tragic on all so many fronts, and all starts with this war. And hopefully, we see peace shortly in the Ukraine.
Yeah, definitely. We're all hoping that this is going to be a peaceful ending at some point because it's been really crazy watching all of the scenes from Ukraine right now. All of the soldiers who have died, all of the civilians who have died as well, and children, and all of the buildings, historical landmark. It's a sad situation overall. And Joe, you brought up a good point about the Russian athletes and with all the bans going on, certain sports, Russians aren't allowed to compete. And I know it's going to be disappointing for a lot of Russians when the Russian national team can't compete in the FIFA World Cup this year because the Russians love their soccer, and if they can't watch their national team compete, that's going to be devastating for that entire country. And I've seen a few Russian athletes in other sports have spoken out about this, how they're against the war and all of that, and at their risk, because anyone who speaks against Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin, sometimes it can lead to severe consequences. So you have to admire and respect their bravery for speaking out in such a serious issue. And getting back to the question, if the racing community should be concerned, I say yes, a little concerned, but there's nothing to get into a full blown panic about right now, because at the moment this is just an issue going on in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine and the surrounding countries at the border of Belarus and west and southwestern Russia as well. So I don't think this is anything that we need to be too deeply concerned about at the moment in the racing community, but it's definitely something that they should pay attention to in case things change and if Russia comes into blows with NATO. I personally don't expect that to happen anytime soon, but we're living in unpredictable times. Anything can happen. If that were to happen, we'd have a third world war on our hands. And it was really crazy looking back at the old history stats in racing, seeing race canceled because of World War II. And hopefully we can avoid a scenario where we're living in modern times where you go back, look at the history book, and be like race canceled because of World War III. So as I said, we're hoping that they're gonna solve this issue in Ukraine, and we can all move on, and all the terror and chaos stops. And with that said, that's it for tonight's episode of our special edition of Grit Tonight. We want to remind all our viewers, please like and subscribe to Grit Network here on YouTube, to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show tonight and consider joining our Patreon. Invest in Grid Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below, and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grid Network. Also, a big thank you to Edward Hunter from formerly E-Zone, Amber. You're in the comment section tonight, and Zachary as well for buying us one. We greatly appreciate it, and any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet, public.com. Visit that, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code will give you $5 to invest right away. Public.com will allow you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And then Thursday morning, new episode of Women in Motorsports, followed by another episode of Grit Tonight tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if there's more motorsports related updates pertaining to what's going on with Russia's invasion into Ukraine, we'll discuss on our regular Grit Tonight show tomorrow evening. For Adam Lemerise and Joe Samaniego, I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.